I'm the Bunny Man.
And I'm Crazy Susie.
And we are in the Eyes of Terror. What?
Nothing. I'm just in one of those moods.
Alright.
We are back to the classics that never die.
Yes.
Tonight's classic is Paranoiac.
Which is another Oliver Reed film. It is. It's another Oliver Reed film.
Oh, okay.
You know, he played in The Curse of the Wolfman, which was before this one, and now Paranoiac. So we're doing sort of these weird double up of, like, people in it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. This is a 1963 film. It's an hour and 20 minutes. But before we get into that, let's do the shilling.
The what?
The shilling.
The shilling.
Yeah. The shilling. Give us money. I'm so poor.
Clinkety clink.
Clinkety clink clink. Yep. So, we have some merch out on Teespring. We just opened up a Teespring store. There's a new Halloween t-shirt out there. And there is the Brides of Dracula movie poster shirt out there. And I'm going to put the Curse of the Werewolf one up. And I'm making several other new Halloween shirts. We also have a huge collection on Redbubble. There's all the past illustrations, last year's Halloween stuff, and little knick-knacky stuff throughout there. Like, I had a guy contact me on Redbubble and says I was one of the only people that had what is called a Napoleonic bee, which is the symbol of Napoleon Bonaparte, as one of my t-shirt things. I changed it, I altered it a little bit, but he was actually surprised that somebody actually carried it. So that's some things that I have on there, that some other illustrations I've created throughout my career. That, and we have some Christmas stuff up if you really want to get into that stuff from last year also.
It's silly things. It's not traditional. So.
And then we have a Patreon.
Yep.
And if you donate $20, you get the illustration. So that's one of the perks. And that all goes back to the channel or the podcast. So it'll be a new microphone, new computer, stuff like that. That's the idea of it.
Right.
And it will even expand into hopefully more like video equipment. We could get a video camera so we could do more skits on our YouTube channel, which leads us into, we do have a YouTube channel. Again, it has all the podcasts on it. All the way from, like, we have Terror Talks. I mean, not Terror Talks, but Terror News. When we first started, we decided to do Terror News, which we don't do anymore.
Right.
We have those on there. And then, but we also are going to continue our Halloween store stuff. I have to go to another city this upcoming week, so I'm going to try to find some more unique stores, but we're going to continue that with
we decided to do that this year instead of sitting on here and talking about all of the different Halloween events that are going on in the different areas. So yeah, that just seemed very monotonous, and we thought it would be more fun to go to the different stores that have Halloween supplies and videotape that, because, you know, we're big Halloween buffs, and it's Halloween every day at our house. So we never put our Halloween decorations away.
And it just makes us drool.
So
all the stuff, but not enough for the money. So
well, it's fun to see all the different things. So. And we are going to put something out starting the first week of October about our Hallows Eve creepy story competition. The exact parameters and rules as to what the competition is going to be
will be announced on here, and then we'll post it on our social media.
Right. So that way you guys will know how to post your creepy stories, and how we will let you guys know who wins, and how we can get the winner, you know, their prize for winning and all of that. So We will post the rules and regulations of that the first week in October.
And then
we're still kind of coming up with how we want to do it exactly.
And then we'll read the best selection towards the end of the month then.
Yeah, we're going to read it on our podcast.
Yeah.
We do know that one of the prizes is going to be, we're going to let the winner choose which illustration they would like a 8x10 copy of. And it's going to be on photo paper. It's going to be a nice copy. So, out of all the illustrations that Bunny Man has ever done, they get to choose which one they would like. So, I think that's a really great prize. But that's not the only thing. That's going to be one of them. So, anywhere.
All right. So, you ready to get into the movie?
I believe so.
All right. Like we've said, this is Paranoiac. Made in 1963, is 1 hour and 20 minutes. It is on the Hammer Collection. It's a DVD set which you can find on Amazon, and not sponsored by Amazon. I believe you can find it on YouTube.
Some of these films are on YouTube. Most of them you can rent on Amazon Prime for like $2 or $3. Not all of them are available on YouTube. They're a little bit more complicated to find free versions of, unfortunately. We just happen to already possess copies of them because we're weird like that.
But the collection is not that expensive.
No.
I think like the most is like, what, $10?
I think we got the entire collection for like $10 or $15. It wasn't horrible.
And there's like how many movies? Like a slew.
I think there's like 6 or 7, maybe 8 in the whole collection. This particular film scores a 7 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty high. It's not rated. It's listed as a drama, horror, mystery. The director is Freddie Francis. The writer is Jimmy Sangster. And the cast is pretty extensive for such an old film, but we're only going to list a few of them. Janette Scott plays Eleanor Ashby. Oliver Reed plays Simon Ashby. Sheila Burrell plays Aunt Harriet. Maurice Denham plays John Kossett. Alexander Davion plays Tony Ashby. Liliane Brousse, I believe, plays
Françoise.
I'm not sure. I don't want to butcher it. John Bonney plays Keith Kossett. John Stewart plays Williams, and there's all the others are listed on IMDb if you want to see the full list. The storyline of this film is loosely based on Josephine Tey's Brat Farrar, a man long believed dead, returns to the family estate to claim his inheritance. And this film originates in the UK.
And it is a black and white film. Although it was made in 1963, it's a black and white film. And the reason is, during this time period, a lot of films were either black or white or in Technicolor. And Technicolor, because of the processing to colorize it, it costs a lot more to do it. So a lot of films that were like B-rated and stuff like that were still in black and white. And I think that even affected up to like the 70s.
Well, I think it has a whole lot of... It just adds this air of kind of gloominess to the film, it being in black and white. I like it. I like the personality that it adds to it.
Yeah, it definitely adds... the black and white plays his own character. So, what is paranoiac? And so, it's to be paranoid, or something like that. The Webster Dictionary was... It's a very weird...
Up, but I don't remember what it said.
It's a very weird word.
You didn't tell me to write that down. We had looked it up, but I don't remember what it said. Somebody who has paranoia.
I hate when the dictionary does that. So it's just a fancier word of saying you have paranoia. Okay, so let's...
Suffering from paranoia.
Okay.
Medical definition of paranoiac, of relating to, affected with, or characterized of paranoia or paranoid schizophrenia. Okie dokie.
Yeah. So the film opens up on this lovely set of cliffs. There's actually a really beautiful seaside cliff opening. It sets a tone of sort of danger. And,
yeah. They're very steep cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's later in the day. Mm-hmm. The sun is setting.
And then the sea itself it's a dark, almost, black and white, but it's inky. It's a very black sea.
I think I might have went to.
And then there's a funeral of John and Mary Ashby. So we meet sort of the first character, which is Simon. And this guy, you could already tell is sort of a douche. Because he is smoking a cigarette. He's an organ player. I guess he's been playing the organ for like 15 some odd, since he was 15. But he's sitting there, as Oliver Reed, he's smoking a cigarette, and then he puts it out without an ashtray onto the organ wood.
Yeah, he's in the back of the church. Nobody can see him. He's, back there by himself.
Well, okay, so an organ is basically a glorified piano, and there's a lot of pipes. Mm-hmm. And back in order to construct, now we have modern day organs, which are electrical and stuff like that, and the pipes are for show. But back then, when they first put in organs, it was all, like, when you push down a key, it bellows air into a pipe.
Right, and that's what made the noise.
That's what makes the noise. Mm-hmm. So they would have this, what you would see of the organ would be the pipes in the chapel. Mm-hmm. And there would be an own room where the organist would be, because they just could not fit the bellows and the organ in one room.
Right.
There's actually a pizza place that is still around, and you can actually see on YouTube the old organs. It's like organs and pizza. Organ and pizza. Yeah.
That's weird.
It's like in Minnesota or Wisconsin or somewhere. It's like, it used to be a pizza chain, and like you would listen to somebody play the organ while you're eating your pizza. I was like, it's pretty cool. Like, if you're into organ music,
it's different.
Yeah, but yeah, the organist would be always separated from everybody else because of just the sheer size of the this instrument. Mm-hmm. But so he puts out the cigarette on the wood, and organs are very, very expensive on top of it. So you put it on the wood, and then you put the butt into one of the pipes.
I don't remember seeing him do that, but I remember him seeing him put the cigarette out on the wood.
Yeah. And then my notes are sort of scattered, so from there on.
Oh, you don't take very thorough notes?
Oh, I do, but I don't. So.
You do, but you don't.
Yeah.
That seems very contrary.
Okay.
So John and Mary Ashby and son Anthony are being remembered at church. During the memorial, the priest talks about the family and then has the church stand and sing. One of the Ashby women faint. She thought she saw her brother in the doorway.
No. She just fainted for fun. She was having some fun time. She just decided to faint.
Eleanor is very upset after the memorial service, and she is taken home to rest. She tells her nurse that her and her brother Tony were so bonded that even the reins of death could not keep them from each other.
So really, the story opens on a very somber event of death.
They leave her to rest. She thinks she sees Tony in the garden, and she runs out of the house after him. So her nurse decides to give her something to sleep, a medication. Simon is not so understanding. He loves women, and he loves to drink.
And he loves his car. And
he has a very foul temper. He meets up with the family attorney because he has run up a debt that he cannot pay.
Okay, so number one, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff he's spending his money on, he has a 1960 Jaguar E-Type. That's what the car he's driving is, a Jaguar E-Type. So, one of the original ones. Mm-hmm. I just love the body style.
Well, I do know that he talked with the butler. He was buying his liquor by the case.
No, there was a merchant. So there would be basically a person that would come and stock up. And they were spending 20 quid every week, which at that time is just unheard of. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a huge amount of money being spent mostly on brandy. He kept saying, we're out of brandy. Mm-hmm. So I think that was his drink of favor. Well, brandy is a very expensive style of alcohol, but he was spending 20 quid a week on alcohol alone. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, he was only allowed an allowance.
Yeah.
And once he spent past that, then, figure it out.
Well, it was past that except for a certain date. Then he would also get, let's say if somebody passed away, that's inheritance on top of it. So he would get Tony's inheritance, or his sister's if they both passed away. Mm-hmm. Or
he would get that portion, their allowance on top of that. Yeah. Or say if he, got a job.
But he's rich, darling. He doesn't get jobs. There's no jobs for the rich. We just take. It's inheritance. Yes.
Okay.
Why would I want to work when I could just sit at home and drink my brandy all day?
Yeah, so I think it's everything that they own is basically inheritance from generational inheritance. Mm-hmm. They live in a castle, in a nice, I don't want to call it a castle, but a manor.
Yeah.
A family estate.
Where generations after generations have died, because his brother was talking about how his room is depressing because he turned one corner to go to his room and his uncle had tripped and died there. He turns another corner and this heir had fell there and died, and he turned another one, and down this flight of stairs, this uncle or that aunt or whatever had a heart attack and died. I mean,
yeah,
because he lived off this one wing, and his other brother lived off another wing, but to get to his room, because he lived up this flight, turn around this corner, up that flight, but he was explaining how depressing it is because it's dark. And all these family members down so many generations had died.
Yeah.
But this manor, as you call it, which it is because it has so many wings on it, has been in the family for generations.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, if a property has been in the family for like 100 years, people are going to die there.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable.
And it's like even here in the United States where we have, family plots and stuff, where there'd just be a cemetery out back.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's very common back then.
Yeah.
And people want to die at their own home.
Yeah.
Back then. You didn't go die in hospitals. The doctor would come to your home. You would have housemaids come and help you through your last minutes, and then the doctor would come and go, yep, they're dying. Have fun with that.
Even in the region of the Midwest where I lived at, it was not uncommon to see cornfields or soybean fields, and then in the middle be a place where they didn't plow. they went around because that was a cemetery. That was a family plot in the middle of this cornfield or the soybean field.
That makes no sense to me.
Well, you can't.
No, I understand because of leaching, but why would you grow anything near that?
Well, because they have to use the land. You know, I mean, it's within like EPA regulations. So it's just, but there would be just a plot of land with tombstones on it. So they use the rest of it, the acreage.
Would people be consuming those crops or animals?
Mostly it was animals. Heck, on my old football practice field, there was a tomb. They had a graveyard there. A tomb. A guy died. One of the guys, he wanted to be buried there, and we used that. We would play basically football on top of the graves on the graveyard.
That's so disrespectful.
Well, I helped get that. I helped get him removed from that area. But it was just, if you can use any land, you can, type thing. Yeah, it was disrespectful, but I mean, that was just the way it was in the area I grew up.
Resourceful, I suppose.
Yep.
Okay, as usual, you helped me lose my spot. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm good at it. Okay. Okay, so he accuses the accountant or the lawyer,
the attorney,
the solicitor. He accused him of him embezzling.
He doesn't accuse the attorney. He accuses his son. Well,
he
accuses the attorney.
Yeah, he accuses the solicitor.
And then he has a private conversation after he talks to the attorney, and the attorney says, you can't have any more money until the trust matures in 3 weeks' time.
So either way, he's getting more money within a 3-week period, but he was out of money up to that point, and he was basically getting withdrawals from his alcohol consumption.
He says he will not get a penny more than his allowance. So Simon then has a private conversation with the attorney's son. He threatens him with an investigation, and then he says he will sue him if any money is missing. So he knows that the attorney's son is leeching money from his accounts.
And he gets £1,000 on top of it. But I mean, some of the solicitor went through what he was spending his money on. He would take random trips to the United States, which at that time airfare was very expensive. He would spend it on, like I said, he had a Jaguar E-Type. Those have always been very expensive cars.
So he manages to talk him out of some money.
Yeah, like I said, £1,000.
And he decides, well, at this time, I won't do any further investigating. But, you know, we'll see. So during all this crazy going-ons, Eleanor decides life is not worth living.
Okay, so Eleanor herself is a bit excitable, and she comes down with a lot of the cases of the vapors. And yeah, she's very...
Well, I think the problem is she was very attached to Tony, and she feels like she has no one that really understands her.
That, or she knows that she's basically, surrounded by... She has no one to confine in. It's you know, Tony was her confidant,
right?
But Simon is this. He's very upset all the time. He's an alcoholic. Their mother is just sort of aloft.
No, their mother and father are dead.
Well,
the woman that's there is their aunt.
Yeah, the aunt is aloft.
Well, the aunt is more consumed with what's going on with Simon than anybody.
Yeah.
So she decides she's going to jump off the cliff. Thankfully, someone sees her. They bring her home. The butler is a little taken aback by this because he swears the person that brought her home was Tony. Simon comes home about the same time. He nearly runs the person over, and Miss Ashby orders them both inside. Simon gets back in his car, runs over...
He runs over the
flower bed.
Yeah.
trying to get away.
He wrecks his car basically into the flower bed.
Yeah.
This is just a douchebag move. He was going too fast anyway. He was just pushing the pedal to the metal of these cars.
Well, he was just trying to avoid the situation altogether.
Yeah.
He was just not wanting to face the situation that was going on. He was just trying to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Eleanor is happy that Tony is home and that she is not mad, as Simon says. Tony goes to speak to Miss Ashby, Needless to say, everyone has very mixed emotions about this whole family reunion. And, Tony has returned after being gone for 8 years.
Well, assumed dead. It was not just, he just didn't get up one day and go, I'm just going to go pack up my stuff. Walk down the road. No, it was assumed that he committed suicide.
Right. There was a note. They assumed he jumped over the cliff. They had a service for him. They just had a memorial
for the parents
and him.
Yeah, and him. Yeah.
Like an anniversary memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that they did every year. So this is a wound that has been open, especially for Eleanor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess one of the things that...
And Simon, too.
Yeah, and Simon, too. Because one of the things that Simon does to test if this is really Tony is offer him a drink. I guess Tony doesn't drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's sort of like the moment. Because only Tony wouldn't drink. Sort of a... But, yeah.
Kind of difficult for him to resurrect. Never mind.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah.
Mr. Kossett, the family attorney, who was the keeper of the estate, met with Tony to ask him a series of questions to see if it was indeed Tony Ashby. Kossett's son met with Tony, so it was pretty obvious that this is a faker.
Well, he even sort of talks to him about it. It's like, so did my dad ask you about the horse's name? Because I put that in his head,
Right.
And
I put that idea in his head, so I was sure he was going to ask you that question.
And we meet this Tony character in a pub or somewhere where he's getting a drink, and the solicitor's son was like, well, Tony doesn't drink, and he's like, well, I'm not really Tony, it's like dun 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 type thing, and then he was asking him a whole bunch of questions and.
He tells him you can get 5 to 10 years for fraud and watch it with Eleanor. She is supposed to be your sister after all.
Yeah, because he starts crushing on Eleanor.
Well, she's a pretty girl.
She's a pretty girl, but she's also vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Simon goes to the local pub and gets plastered. The pub owner calls Tony because Simon acted so distastefully. So Tony took him home. Simon tells him he does not think he is Tony. Call it a hunch.
Really? The plot thickens.
Call it a hunch. Hey. Okay. Everyone is awakened by the organ playing and a boy singing. Tony goes to investigate and finds a masked figure who injures his arm with a hook. Eleanor cleans him up and suggests they contact the police.
Okay, so let's talk about the mask alone. The mask is a creepy mask.
It is.
And the way that the shadows lay on it, and like the lighting of it just even made it even creepier. If it was if it was lit differently, it would probably look really crappy. But
it kind of looks like a balding old man with a double chin.
Yeah. With really white eyes, though. It's just a sort of a very oddly disturbing.
In a choir gown.
Yeah, at first when I first saw I was like, is that a parka? I mean, it's like, is he in a poncho?
It's like, I don't know. It was weird. Yeah. It's kind of like a lighter version of our doll mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. So, she cleans him up and suggests that they contact the police, but Tony says, no, we're not going to do that. Later that day, they go on a picnic. Eleanor goes to back up the car, but Simon had played a little trickaroo on him, and he cut the brake line.
Yeah.
And she nearly fell off the cliff. Tony saves her, and they manage to get home safely.
Well, this was actually pretty... I don't know how heavy this car is, but that was a pretty interesting feat of heroicism. Because he grabbed the front...
No, he gets a metal...
No, first he grabs it, and then he puts the metal pole in the front fender.
Yeah, he grabs a metal pole from, like, the fencing.
Yeah.
And he jabs it into the ground in front of the front...
It was the fender. Between the grill and the fender.
Okay, yeah. To try to help brace the car, which the car would weigh. I mean, honestly, let's think realistically. The car would weigh too much, and the back of it was already starting to go off the cliff.
No, the back was off the cliff. It was.
Yeah.
So it was dangling.
There's no way he would have been strong enough to get it far enough into the ground for it to brace the car, and he managed to get her out of the car before it went off the cliff.
She climbed over the. I don't remember if it was a collapsible windshield or she climbed over it.
It was just like a 3/4 windshield. It's a sports car.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full windshield. It
No,
was
I was trying to remember if it was a collapsible or not. If it was like the thing. I couldn't remember because in my mind I'm like, is it collapsible like the thing, the Volkswagen thing? But it's not. It was
just like a 3/4 windshield. Yeah.
And she climbs over, which would have disrupted, that type of motion.
Yeah.
I mean... And then...
he saved her just in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So they come back after their picnic, and
Right.
Simon's there with his trusty bottle of booze.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he meant for Eleanor to be nearly killed or...
So, them coming home turns Simon into another rage, and he goes on at the organ again. So Tony hears the organ playing again, and the singing, and he and Eleanor go to check this out. They see Simon playing the organ, and a masked boy singing, or rather a record playing. The boy spots them and comes after Eleanor. Come to find out, it was Miss Ashby, their aunt.
Dun dun dun!
Who knew a 40-year-old woman could masquerade as a boy with just a mask?
My
and
mind
a choir
was
gown.
blown.
Anyway, so their aunt says Simon is made. He gets awful depression. She has to pretend to be Tony as a boy. When Simon was getting better, but since you've returned, it has been getting worse. He doesn't believe you're his brother, and neither do I. Eleanor gives Tony a good night kiss, and it turns into a deep, passionate kiss. She locks herself into her room. She says Simon was right. She says she is in love with him, and he breaks and tells her he is an imposter.
Well, and yeah, Simon's not Tony.
So, the nurse taking care of Eleanor, she and Simon have a thing together. And the next scene is Simon laying in the bed with the nurse. Well, he scares her. So she decides to pack her bag and leave. She says she knows he's intended to hurt his brother and sister.
Well, okay, but I mean, they've had this, there's sort of been like a subplot between the nurse and Simon throughout the film. Mm-hmm. And he was asking, like, what did you give her to faint? And she's like, I didn't do anything. So he's purposely trying to make her go nut. Like, he's trying to figure out a way to either, through the nurse, to either give her pills to increase her anxiety and her mental grasp, so he could get within that 3-week time frame that cut of the money.
Yeah.
And on top of Tony, so that's what, he's more irritable because of Tony's comeback.
So he starts to make out with her, and well, she's outside. She's already packed her stuff. She's decided he's wackadoo. She don't want to have nothing to do with him. And Simon has this way about him,
He's I would say he has cult leader-esque type personality.
Well, he's one of those kind of people where he has the way of drawing people into him.
Yeah.
He has this animal magnetism, but he can flip a switch in the matter of a second.
Well, like I said, he has that.
He
has that cult.
So he's kind of like Charles Manson.
He has that.
He can draw people into him, but he's psychotic. So he draws her into him, and they start making out. And he decides in a split second, that's it. She's no longer useful to me. She's not gonna. I can't control her anymore. So I'm going to get rid of her.
Because basically she's starting to see through him. I mean, the charisma is sort of wearing off, I think, on her. Because I think she's becoming...
Well, it's just the point that she's decided she's going to leave because she won't do what I want her to, so...
Well, but I'm saying his hold on her is starting to wear off. Because, that's the first break type thing. And he's just like, I'm done with her. Because I can't, like you said,
she's figured out the plot. She's figured out that he wants to hurt his brother and sister.
And that's where she's like, I'm done. It's because there's nothing in it for her. She finds out there's basically nothing in it for her. Mm-hmm. She's expendable. And so he drowns her.
Yep. In the pond. Everybody dies in the pond for some reason. I don't get it.
That plays into our next movie, too. So you sort of had this weird question because you really never see a body, you just see him over, and like camera work would be underneath the surface. That you were even like, was the nurse even real, or did he really drown her? Because you're really starting to question Simon's stability, and if he's actually seeing people or not. Which, because like I said, you never actually see the body go into the lake. Or the pond. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting entertainment of an idea.
Well, but the thing is, other people had asked about the nurse.
Yeah.
The sister, the aunt. So, throughout the movie...
No, I'm not saying... I'm saying maybe the killing scene, he actually didn't kill her. That's what I'm... Is it playing out in his head that he killed her? And
maybe she had just left without saying goodbye to him, and that was his way of finalizing and being okay with her leaving.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't deal well with separation.
Well, no, as the movie progresses, we see that his grasp on sanity is very much waning.
He may have killed his parents too. I mean, they died in a car crash.
Well, I mean, we could discuss that at the end of the film, but I just, when we come up to the nurse, I thought that was, because you did bring up that one sort of like thing, because, but again, this is, 1960, you don't see a lot of kill scenes, let's say.
No, It's very taboo for that era, so.
Especially British films where, it was outlawed, so. All right. We get to the nurse drowning.
The next morning, he tells Eleanor that she left last night. And Tony left too. But he We'll be back. Tony goes to the attorney's son and tells him that he has 12 hours to cover his tracks. He says he believes he knows where the real Tony Ashby is. He goes and tells Eleanor to pack a bag. They are leaving, and he goes to the cellar where the organ is. There's like an organ room. It kind of reminds me of a cellar. We're not really sure exactly how to label it.
I'm not even really sure how this manor's set up, because I thought, like, here's the church. Here's the organ room within the church. And then a manor was a separate piece. And then, but we're seeing that the manor and the church, or at least the organ room, is connected.
No, this is totally separate. Because the church had the organ room where it was, and the vestibule and all that was. This is totally different.
Okay, so they have their own organ set up within the manor.
It seems like there's the manor, and then you go down into like a basement area, or maybe it's a room off of the manor where they have their own like organ room, where maybe like generations of men have practiced that art, and it was kind of passed down to him. Maybe the eldest son. Yeah, maybe that was an art that it was passed down.
Or it's just like you said, like a generational art form. Somebody.
So they have an organ room there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, like I said, a cellar, or there's a special room that they have set up. It
seemed like, because every time that first Eleanor starts hearing Tony's voice, and because she noticed it, she was the first one to notice it. So it was outside of her room.
Well, how the house is, everybody's room is upstairs.
Yeah, but
in different wings.
But I don't know if it's like.
That's why I said I kind of thought it was in the cellar, because everything looks like it's brickwork in there. It's hard to see in black and white, though.
Yeah, but I was sort of thinking it was maybe there was an inner corridor, or not a court, an inner courtyard, and then that's where the building would be, and Eleanor's bedroom looked into that inner courtroom, or. You know, like the inner...
And it's kind of dark in there, like there isn't a lot of windows.
Yeah.
But think of how loud an organ is.
Well, yeah.
Like an old organ would be very loud.
And maybe that's why they did it in, like, sort of like that part of the wing, but the way to get into it is through that inner courtyard.
Oh, I don't know. But anyway,
yeah.
The organ room, anyway... It's the organ room, either way, whether it's a cellar or basement or whatever. So Tony has her to pack a bag, and he goes to the organ room and searches. Miss Ashby is there, and she is very upset that he is there. They struggle, and a pipe moves. He moves the pipe and unearths the body of Tony. Simon admits to killing Tony and Eleanor. He goes to leave, and Simon hits him on the head with a pipe and starts talking as if Tony were there talking to him.
Well, he imagines Tony's being there because he set him up in a chair.
Yep. Well, he pulls the body out of the wall. He dresses Tony in his altar boy gown.
No, I think he was already dressed.
No. The one that he has his aunt wears when they're playing the record of him singing, he puts that one on him.
Okay.
A fresh, clean, crisp, white one.
Okay.
He puts it on him. And Miss Ashby comes in and gets Simon to go into the house. She tells Tony, Simon belongs to me, and throws down a lit lantern. Simon is upset because Tony's body is in there with the fire. He goes inside and gets him. Because of the lantern and the fire, the room is overtaken with smoke. Eleanor and Tony, not, the fake Tony, they manage to escape and leave together. Miss Ashby screams as Simon is overcome by the smoke.
I don't really think he's overcome by the smoke. I think he just sort of gives up and just sort of like, because his whole thing was the reason why he wanted to shove the fake Tony with the real Tony back on the wall was Tony's alone. He wanted to give Tony company.
Well, I think
that was his sort of...
No. I think he was overcome with guilt for killing his brother.
Well, I mean...
And that Tony being there brings all that to light.
Well, that's what I was going to say. But, I mean, but I honestly think that when he went back in there to save the corpse of the real Tony, he knew that there was either no way he could get out because of the blaze. So he just sort of, like, cuddles with the body out of just, like, basically...
He's trying to protect him.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but it was just sort of like an act of, I'm really sorry what I did type thing. You know what I'm trying... Like, the guilt just got so bad.
Well, it's hard to know what his emotions are because he's not mentally stable.
No. I mean, he planned this out. He planned out killing Tony for a while. Because he even said, like, well, what about the note? He's like, yeah,
I got him to write it 2 years before I killed him.
Yeah.
I kept it for 2 years.
So he pre-planned this whole thing, to kill his brother.
I got him to write it as a joke, and I kept it for 2 years. So that's why I said I wonder if he killed his parents.
Well, and there's a huge possibility that he did.
Because they died in a car accident.
Yeah. And we see that he can mess around with the brakes of a car.
Right. He's a very intelligent person. And most people that are, sadistic like that. Mm-hmm. What's the word I'm looking for?
You have your Ted Bundys.
Exactly. What is the...
psychopathia.
Psychopaths. There you go. Most people that are psychopaths that have no,
emotion.
Right. They have no...
They're calculating, they're emotional, they have...
sympathy for what they do. They appear to, he appears sad for losing his brother, but he wanted that inheritance. He's not sad.
I think it was more... I don't really think he is psychopathic as much as greed got the best of him.
He wanted his brother for companionship when he wanted the companionship. Mm-hmm. But he wanted his inheritance too. Mm-hmm. But he only wanted his brother when he wanted him. And that's why he had those episodes of depression, because he missed his brother during those times. Mm-hmm. And that's why his aunt kind of was a pseudo-brother for him. But he only had those episodes during times when... I don't want to say when he felt guilty, but when certain triggers around him reminded him.
But I mean,
and that's why he kept.
But
playing.
he also soothed his guilt with, and you can almost say he soothed his guilt with money by the women,
brandy, expensive
cars,
things.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I give this actually a score of 4 out of 5. It's a really classic tale of whodunit, but I really sort of like the plot.
It's a really, really good film. It was done very well.
And I think this is actually a better Oliver Reed film than, let's say, Curse of the Werewolf. Although we still get to meet screaming Oliver Reed, it's not. We see more of his range of acting. Yeah. And it does a pretty good dive into badness. Mm-hmm. That most films today don't really do.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and...
I think you can do it.
With your trivia?
You can do it.
Alright. Then we can discuss some more afterwards. Alright. Paranoiac, 1963, trivia. Another version of Josephine Tey's novel, Brat Farer, had appeared on Hammer's schedule as far back as 1952.
I think it's Ferrer. I believe.
The film was released as a double bill with A Kiss of the Vampire, 1963. The film takes place in 1961. Liliane Brousse is dubbed by Christine Finn. Antonio James Ashby was born in 1938 and died in 1953. So there is really an Anthony James.
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, so there really is an Ashby line, let's say.
Yeah.
John and Mary Ashby were killed in a plane crash in 1950. So it sort of has a loose basis on reality.
Mm-hmm. So it was a plane crash, not a car crash. My bad.
No. There was a plane crash. So they changed. But either way, it's... So he wouldn't have had any direct sort of... I mean, obviously he wouldn't probably have killed him in a plane crash. It could have... But...
Well, just losing his parents at a young age, that kind of trauma could have been what started his mania.
Yeah, he was already basically fragile, and then...
Mm-hmm.
Like... Yeah. So, like I said, that was a 1960 Jaguar E-Type. They're actually coming out with an electrical one with the same sort of body type. Jaguar is, in I think the next year or so. So they're going back to the classical body type. Just thought that was an interesting tidbit.
You and your Jaguars.
Uh-huh. So, what did you think overall?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was more of a thriller than a horror, but I really enjoyed it.
Well, again, we run into the issue of horror has become such a broad term of a catch-all. I mean, we even have comedy within horror, so it's...
I think that's pretty interesting, though.
Yeah.
All the different types that they have now, but I really did enjoy it. You know, and that's why we've tried to, throughout the year, have such an eclectic mix of things to try to show everyone that, you know, horror is such a wide range, you know.
And we try to also bring, forth films that most people would just pass over.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not, I hate this film, when it's like, we actually enjoy a lot of these films. We really do.
Mm-hmm. And I let you pick things that I don't generally like.
Well, next year you can pick out some. But, so, what do you think of Eleanor? What did you think, what was going on with her? Do you think she was just excitable, as it would be the term used back then?
I think she was, I don't know, I think it's hard to say. I think she just felt kind of lost, you know. She was a young girl that didn't really have guidance. She didn't have a mother. She didn't have a father. She had an aunt that really cared very little for her. The only confidant she had was her nurse. And
we saw how that played out.
Her nurse was really more absorbed with other things, and
trying to make her...
It seemed like the butler really genuinely cared about her, and I'm sure the butler had been with the family before she was even a twinkle in her parents' eye, you know, because he was a very old gentleman. I think she just felt very lost in the world. I think the only person she felt like she had a true connection with was Tony. And when she lost him, I think she just felt like, what was the point?
Yeah. I just think it's sort of weird that she sort of fell in love at the end with a guy that looked like her brother.
I don't think that's strange.
You don't? Mm-mm. I don't know. I thought it was a bit different. I don't know. It's just...
To have no connection with anybody and to feel like, you know, you don't have anybody that cares about you, and then to feel like you finally have that ultimate connection, for it to turn from nothingness to love like that doesn't seem strange to me.
Okay, well, I just thought it was weird that somebody who was trying to portray her brother.
Well, I think if she really trusted Simon and she trusted her aunt, because those are the people that she's depended on her entire life, and they strongly doubted it was Tony, then there had to be that doubt in her mind.
Well, there may have been just some sort of like doubt in her mind. She just didn't voice it as much as she was just sort of hoping that he would have actually been alive. Because as Simon said, there is no body. There was no body that they buried. Right. How was there? Nothing washed up. Nothing was there. How did they know he was? Or somebody said, I don't think it was Simon, but how? Because Simon ultimately knew.
No, it was the lawyer's son. He said, they have no reason to doubt because there was never that full-fledged evidence that he died because there was never a body.
Yeah, and now bodies.
Well, no, there wasn't because it was in the damn wall.
Yeah, but a body could wash up to shore in like years. There's been cases of people who've gone missing in 5-6 years, be across the world washing up on a shore.
Right.
But
it's not going to wash up anywhere when it's in the wall.
Yeah. I just find it. He packed him well in there. So.
Yeah, he was very mummified in the wall.
And that, is just... So, I think she was already, depressed or whatever, and that just triggered sort of the mania within her on top of the excitement of everybody else, too.
And I think deep down she knew it wasn't Tony. Mm-hmm. But because he gave her the attention that she needed at the right time in her life when she had all this hopelessness. And he was that bright, shining star that she needed. Because if you don't remember, right before that, she threw herself off the cliff.
Yeah.
So she was ready to kill herself. Mm-hmm. And he saved her.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
If you add all that together,
Mm-hmm.
In a way, I guess, in her mind, the fact that he reminds her of the one person that she felt extremely comfortable with and felt so bonded with, that's just a bonus.
Well, and I want to say this.
For a normal person, that would seem creepy almost, but for her, it was a comforting thing.
These type of stories, these madness stories and stuff like that, I feel like they play out better with the backdrop of European countries than, let's say, American backdrop, like American families, or because there is a series of, yes, we still have generational wealth in this country, in America. It is there, but it's not as prevalent, let's say, as it used to be, like it is in Europe, or used to be in Europe. We don't have, like, generations that live in manors. And I'm talking, where dukes, I've been in some of those places. I've been into one in Chatsworth, UK, where the family still lives there. And they still have the name of whatever position that, they were a duke and a duchess, I think. Mm-hmm. They still have that title. It doesn't mean anything anymore. But they still have the estate. Mm-hmm. But now those estates a lot of them are like living museums, but they still live in parts of the houses. So to me, with the backdrop of Europe, and we've known that European royalty does go nuts because of either inbreeding, genetic disorders continue. There are certain genetic disorders that will continue within, not even inbreeding, but they're very close. You don't marry usually a commoner or somebody outside of the pre-approved families.
Right. So their genetic heritage is very closely linked.
Yes.
So if there's not inbreeding, then you're marrying like a second cousin or something.
Yeah. So like a lot of
their genetic line is very closely linked.
Like a lot of royalty, especially back in, let's say,
not something we would typically do in the United States.
Like World War I.
It happens, but it's not something that happens as common as it used to.
But a lot of our wealth is considered new wealth.
Right.
Even like our Rockefellers and stuff are considered new wealth compared to European wealth, where
it does happen here, but not as commonly as it has there.
Yeah, but I was going to bring up like World War I, just to tell you like how insane everybody was related. Look at the alliances of World War I; those were family alliances. Mm-hmm. Every royalty family who ruled Europe at that time were interrelated, and a lot of the allies and stuff. Well, those allies, it was a family feud. So yeah, so I feel like this is a little bit more believable with the backdrop of the UK.
And with the black and white, it definitely does add a flair and an ambiance that really sets the film apart.
Yeah, I really do feel like the black and white, and there's certain films that, I forgot to mention this in another review that we did, The Woman, I'm going to bring that, but the black and white plays another character. Mm-hmm. And The Woman, I forgot to mention this when we recorded it, but I keep thinking about it and I keep kicking myself in it, so I'm going to say it now. The music in The Woman played as its own character. That it just added to the ambiance. It was so much, you couldn't, I think if you did it in color, it would lose some sort of...
Yeah, it would.
Especially with that mask. If that was in color and lit wrong, it wouldn't have been as creepy. Yeah, the eyes wouldn't have popped.
It was creepy for sure.
Yeah. So, well, I think that's the end of this review. Remember, Tony's always alone. Always alone. Okay, so...
No, he's not alone now. Simon's with him.
Yeah.
What is it, Luna? You have anything to say?
Luna likes pretzels?
Excuse you. Are you a good girl? Luna's very rotten when we record. She has to be the center of attention, so she gets very annoyed. Yeah. We have to put a big pile of treats on the table so we can feed the Luna when we record. She gets very annoyed. Yeah, I get very annoyed. I'm not the center of attention. Well, we'll scare you guys later.
Bye.